Still here, huh? Welcome back to part 7 of the world building review of the Avatar: The Last Airbender franchise. We have to finish a few more of these quick-fire fixes to help give us some context. So, as usual, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel right over here. It would be very much appreciated. And let's continue with animal hybrids. In this whole franchise, we see that animals are, well, not the usual kind of animals. They're actually hybrid mixes between 2 or more of our real-life animals here on Earth, and their names just reflect that.
It's a wolf bat!
For earthbending, the original benders were badgermoles.
Nothing runs faster over land or swims quicker than a giant eelhound.
Someone's being attacked by a platypus bear!
Aw, what a cute name for a little baby saber-toothed moose lion cub.
Really? He looks nothing like a saber-toothed moose lion.
It's hard to tell before their giant teeth and horns grow in.
And the reason? Because one of the creators just always had fun drawing animal hybrids since he was a kid and wanted it there. Yeah, that's it. No other reason. Jeez. Alright, look. I get it. It's actually pretty cute and I approve of him for having such a wild imagination. That's not the problem. But yeah, let's face it, it's still something that needs to be contended with. Especially because, first off, some of these hybrids still share one animal between them. Like having pig sheep or pig cows or whatever. There's still an origin to one of them that implies there should have been one common parent species, and yet they all been like this at least since Avatar 1 10,000 years ago. Has there really been no evolution or blending of the two since? And second, there still are regular animals like Bosco the bear, parrots, cats, etc. So what gives? Yeah, this needs some addressing. Although in fairness, the solution is actually pretty simple. It should be nothing more than spirit tampering. No, for real, during Avatar 1's era, we see that a regular human soldier had his body invaded by a spirit, and it permanently deformed the body of that human, turning him into this weird hybrid. And we see it previously with an old dude who had also been transformed by a tree spirit. Need further proof? Well, in the Kora comic Turf Wars, there's a criminal who literally had his body invaded by a spirit that went through the portal left open in Republic City, and deformed him as well, to the point that he turned it into an advantage or weapon since it yes made him monstrous, but also gave him great speed, agility, and a full tentacle arm as a weapon. Yeah, so this is pretty self-explanatory. I think that eons ago, probably before humans went to live on the lion turtles, there actually were regular animals around. But perhaps they had less spiritual energy compared to humans, and thus, their bodies could be transformed more easily by spirits. Plus, humans lived on the lion turtles, which were the ultimate protection for them, so they were safe so long as they were there. Spirits didn't dare go against these guys. And so, over time, these hybrids just kind of stayed. To the point that regular animals would have become extremely rare in this world, probably reserved only for the highest of royalties, as was the case for Bosco the bear.
The king is having a party at the palace tonight for his pet bear.
You mean platypus bear?
No, it just says bear.
Certainly you mean his pet skunk bear.
Or his armadillo bear.
Gopher bear?
Just bear. This place is weird.
And by the way, I think that the reason as to why they didn't evolve to be a bit more blended, and why you can easily tell the original animal they were from, is because, well, genetics just kinda seems to work very differently in this world anyway. Like, look, I know this is opening a big can of worms, but it kind of reflects also on the genetics of humans with their bending. Because we said so far that bending is more in relation to their own spiritual attunement and strength, fine, but that alone has nothing to do with the type of element they can bend. Sometimes two different benders can have offsprings that are non-benders at all, and sometimes it's half and half.
I'm an earthbender! I'm not!
But sometimes both can be benders and get one element from one parent, or like two elements from both parents, as was the case for Mako and Bolin. But there's never ever any smudging between the two. The lines are very strict here, because if they weren't, there wouldn't even be the need for someone like the Avatar. Which, by the way, can only reinforce my previous theory, check it out if you haven't, of bending extensions and why benders just can't change the direction of it. So, yeah, in the same way humans keep very hard lines with their bending, I guess it would make sense that the same goes for the animals, where if you have the genetic trait of one species, it either keeps trickling down through various generations or just disappears entirely, but never gets fully integrated into its own species. Yeah, sometimes you just can't ignore genetics. And if nothing else, I suppose that at least it means that so long as you have one matching species trait, two different animals can reproduce way more easily with a variety of other animals, and the quote-unquote purebreds would basically be either super rare or limited to royal pets that have very controlled breeding, as was the case with Bosco the bear. Spirit fusion. On the topic of having spirits merge with you and deform you physically permanently, by the way, let's go back for a moment to that criminal who fused his body with a spirit in the Turf Wars comic. His name is Tokuga, and in all honesty, while aesthetically he might have gotten the shaft, keep in mind that the dude was actually a non-bender before, and now suddenly became way more strong. How strong? The dude was able to shatter the freaking Genomite crystal that was thrown at him. And if you saw this series episode on Earthbenders, you know how dangerous those damn things can be. So, yeah, this got me thinking. Because if all of this can happen to one guy who just happened to piss off the wrong spirit at the wrong moment, what would happen to other people if they happened to piss off a spirit by accident? It's not like they're saints themselves or have the best attitudes, quite frankly.
Hey, watch where you're going!
What are you doing living in the middle of the road in the first place?
Don't ask me, Avatar. You made the world this way. We're just living in it.
And anyone could be at risk of being deformed like this. Like, I would imagine that even parents could be understandably paranoid at the idea that their kid could become like a half-spirit skunk or whatever. So, yeah, this would actually become a pretty big issue. But I have a proposition on how we can fix this, and it would all depend on who gets transformed, if it's benders or non-benders. On the one hand, during Avatar 1's era, the first guy that we see transformed was a soldier who was out hunting in the forests while he had the power of the element of fire, and it screwed him over so much that he ran away. Perhaps we can say that since, again, we propose that bending is actually an extension of one's own spiritual energy, if it happens to a bender, someone who could extend it, then in that case it could sort of damage that bender's spirit, to the point that it damages their ability to extend that spirit, and thus, if they get transformed, they could risk losing their ability to bend ever again, and they would remain stuck in this deformed state. On the other hand, Tokuga was a non-bender, but was able to use it to his advantage. So, if non-benders can't extend their spiritual energy, but at least they have it so nailed to their body, that they can use it as a sort of aura that helps protect them better against bending attacks, then perhaps when a foreign spirit invades their body, that spirit risks accidentally leaving behind a piece of themselves that permanently fuses with that of the non-bender. So, a foreign spirit would actually damage themselves by losing pieces behind, so they'd be doing this at their own risk. And if it doesn't work out, they end up actually strengthening the spirit of the invaded non-bending human, to the point that, while deformed, they can use their new body as an actual weapon, like getting a tentacle, a claw, freaking wings, or whatever, and they would toughen up their body because of this extended powerful aura inside themselves. It wouldn't count as giving them airbending though, because first off, they're two different kinds of spirits that don't really mesh that well in order to accomplish this specifically. And remember, even benders would need to extend their spirit, which these guys still wouldn't be able to do. So, I think that the creators of the show could open a new storytelling door for themselves. where I propose that later on in this series, since most people will now become actual full benders thanks to the portals, the ones who are left with nothing still could decide that, if nothing else, they could have the choice to go to other spirits and ask to be merged with them, and grant them these new physical abilities. Both as weapons as well as enhancements, where they could even fall off from great heights with ease, be much faster, or much stronger than before. And in the end, it could be the dawn of a new species of humans. Half-spirits. They'd have other advantages too if they do this fusion willingly. Cause first off, we saw plenty of evidence that spirits can transform their appearance to become more human, as was the case with this little spirit in Kora, as well as the great spirit of Lady Tien Hai in the comic book The Rift, who decided to become a human and fall in love with a mortal for several years. So, this means that if a non-bending human chooses to fuse willingly with a spirit, they could transform themselves and also have the potential to revert back to their original human form. Sure, at the cost of turning off these enhancements and abilities, but that's the thing, they can turn them on and off again at their choosing. And the other advantage is that, since the other times people were transformed in these terribly ugly forms because it was an unwilling invasion of their body, if it's instead willingly done, then perhaps they could negotiate with the spirit to make sure that their transformations are more evened out and more aesthetically pleasing. So, there you go. If you're a bender, you risk permanently losing your bending if you decide to fuse. But if you're still a non-bender even after Kora left the spirit portals open, then you at least have the choice to ask to become like a superpowered furry or whatever and satisfy that quota as well. Basically, we could recreate the premise of the Bloody Roar games. Does anyone remember those? Well, I do. They were super fun and cool. Go check them out and bring them back, please. The Eclipse. This'll be quick. We see that in Book 3 of Avatar, there will be a total solar eclipse that takes away the bending of all firebenders. I was wondering why this would be the case, since, by that logic, if the sun is canonically what gives firebenders their bending in the first place, then, I don't know, something like nighttime should take away their bending as well. And we can't exactly have that now, can we? So instead, perhaps the reason a total solar eclipse works is because, since the moon is one of the sources of water bending, having the moon in front of the sun would be not metaphorically, but almost literally like water putting out fire, filtering and nullifying fire bending in general. So yeah, just a little clarification there that I think could work. The Boiling Rock. A prison built in the middle of a boiling lake inside a volcano in the Fire Nation. Honestly, it could work if not for the fact that everyone there would get a sudden heat stroke. You can't even build this place out of volcanic rock itself because, while it stops the intense heat from reaching you, it itself still radiates heat. So yeah, either use the material of those solitary confinement cells around the entire building, or there should be some guards who are using firebending to actually redirect the heat away and leave cool areas. It would be the only thing that allows the isolation cells to freeze in the first place anyway, at least if firebenders redirect heat intensely enough. Otherwise, how else would they achieve that in the first place outside of hiring waterbenders? Spirit Ports. This is just a nifty little idea that I recommend the creators use for the future of this franchise. The idea that, starting with Republic City, spirit portals will have the equivalent of like airports built around them to help monitor and control who comes in and who comes out. Come on, it's cute, don't deny it. Rava and Vatu Fusion. At the end of Book 2 of The Legend of Korra, Kora herself was powered up by the Tree of Time, turned into a spiritual kaiju, and took down Unalaq fused with Vatu. The way she did this is by having the spirit of Jinora show Kora the core of Rava inside of Vatu and extract her out in order to save the day. So, cheesy as this Power Ranger-esque idea was, especially for just Season 2. I think that Kaiju Kora should have been powered up by the Tree of Time and Jinora, whom we can say had been so long in the spirit world that she gathered more and more spiritual energy, in order to defeat Univatu like this, but also sped up the time of both the light and dark spirits, thanks to, the Tree of Time, to extract Vatu out of Rava as well. It is stated that they both need to exist after all.
If you and Vatu have the same fight every 10,000 years, why hasn't one of you destroyed the other?
He cannot destroy light any more than I can destroy darkness. One cannot exist without the other. Even if I defeat Vatu in this encounter, darkness will grow inside me until he emerges again. The same will hold true if Vatu defeats me.
Because the show just shows Vatu being destroyed, but we kinda can't have that in a show that's based on the idea of universal balance. Even Vatu wasn't destroyed until now, he was just trapped. So I think that to better clarify this, the solution should have been just taking the two spirits and fusing them into one. Probably accomplished only thanks to Jinora's intervention, making thus Kora the first of an even more powerful series of avatars in the future that are both light and dark at the same time. The true perfect balance. Which would then explain why Unavatu's dark vines that initially invaded the city aren't so deadly anymore. They're just regular vines because they're a nuisance but not necessarily evil and not easy to get rid of. They didn't exactly explain this detail of the vines after all, so it might as well be the reason why. Speaking of which, the Tree of Time. This is just a little expansion on the concept. The Tree of Time is found in the spirit world where both the northern and southern spirit portals meet and can help you relive your entire lifetime. Since it deals with, time, I had a thought that I wanted to propose. What if it could also help channel the potential power of your entire lifetime into one moment while you're meditating inside of the tree, borrowing the energy from the rest of your lifetime? In a way, a non-bender would be ideal here. Alright, picture this. Perhaps said non-bender was supposed to be a bender all along, but all their power in their life was actually nullified because it was being redirected into a single time they'd be in the tree, where they'd be suddenly an extremely powerful bender all at once, but then never again. It would be like a huge revelation and twist, but also great food for thought. How a character could have gone through an entire lifetime filled with insecurities and doubts and more, thinking that they were inept because they were born a non-bender, only to realize that they were supposed to be one, and an entire lifetime's worth of potential bending was actually being redirected into one single moment of overcharged bending while inside the tree, and it could have been like the one single time they could have saved the day if there was no one else around. And they would have to reflect for the rest of their life with the idea that they were actually born a bender, but they just had one single powerful shot. Keeping in mind it would only be one element, obviously. For the Avatar it's different, however, because there's just so many lifetimes of bending that they can sort of make up for it. So yeah, just that. It was a neat little concept that I wanted to propose. Now, I was gonna go to the next topic, but I made a slight miscalculation because this is going to be actually a little bit longer than I originally anticipated, so I'm sorry to say we're going to have to pause here for now, and next time we will continue on with another important topic about this world. But don't worry, we're getting very close to the final stretch. So, stay tuned for the next video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel, join my Patreon if you want to support what I do here, and remember, in the description below you'll find the links to the official Discord server, as well as the official Instagram page of this channel if you want to keep up with more updates, have a personal chat with moi, and keep going into further world-building discussions. Check them out and I'll see you there. Until then, keep building worlds!